think about another interesting tidbit, which is that the number of people who could not pass through the normal birth canal was about 30 per 1,000. Now it is 36, which means that if you do not know the cesarean, the C-section technique of birthing, mother and child or mother or child are going to die. And the word cesarean, of course, comes from Julius Caesar. You know that, right? Because he was born like that. He had to cut open his mother's womb so that he could be born. Now, the reason that's happening is human brains are increasing in size. And the pelvic stretching has not kept pace with it. And you might imagine that we can actually evolve in tandem. That is, the size of the pelvis or the width of the pelvis can increase to keep pace with the increase of the brain, which makes the heads become bigger and bigger. But that's not happening. That is, the pelvis is not widening at the rate at which the brains are expanding, which means there are more and more children born which must be born through the cesarean, the C-section. And of course, nowadays it's convenient. You can choose when you want a child to be born. So people go for nice dates. They can look at a calendar and say, I want my child to be born on Christmas Day. So. But see, this is what I'm trying to say is this is the paradox of success, that for thousands of years, very few people knew how to do that safely, and it was very risky. Childbirth itself was risky. The numbers of babies that died in childbirth and mothers that died in childbirth was huge. I'm talking about hundreds and thousands of years back. But now that you know how to do it, you might imagine that you've conquered nature, that there's no problem. You don't need the pelvis to expand. The brain can expand as much as possible, and the cranium size can go up. But look at the fallout. Babies who are not born through the vaginal canal do not have the kind of immunity that babies who are born from the cesarean section. So they are saying that the passage through the vagina is as important to the baby as mother's milk is, because the fluids there envelop this baby pushing out from there with all kinds of stuff which give it immunity. So that's what I'm trying to suggest. This is the paradox of success or evolution. You fix one thing, but there's another thing. Like, look at antibiotics. Before penicillin, so many people used to die of infections. People still die of infections. But today, there are bacteria which are resistant to antibiotics. And that's the next pandemic, maybe because of that. I know somebody who works in the CDC, the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, and you go there and people, you feel that we've conquered most of our worst infectious diseases like smallpox. Smallpox was a big killer. Influenza was a very big killer. In 1918, can you guess how many people died of the flu? 1918 is a significant date. You know why?
There's the Spanish flu.
The Spanish flu and different kinds of flu. But why is it also significant? What was going on in 1918? Yes? World War I, exactly right, which ended in 1919. And the war also gave a great impetus to the flu, because people were going back and forth and the infections were spreading. But you just guess how many people died of the flu, of influenza? Any random guesses? How many people died in the United States of the flu?
No.
guess there's no minus marks for guessing wrong. A million people died where? In the world?
Sure.
You're right, but more people died than a million. About a million died, less than a million died just in the United States. In fact, the United States was insulated because there's a big ocean separating it, the Atlantic and the Pacific. So about 676,000 people died of the flu in the United States. But 76 million died all over the world. How about that? Or 65 million, some huge number, which is twice the population of Canada. So from there we feel now we've conquered our epidemics. But here's the problem, that more people are dying now of resistant strains of bacteria. So this is what I was trying to say, that was the paradox of the success of the human species. And the neat thing about Sharvanda is what he says is that human beings are not the highest point of evolution. And so if you looked at the two readings, he's giving you an alternative theory, if not an alternative theory. Now we scientifically subscribe to biological evolution. Yeah? But he doesn't talk about that. He talks about spiritual evolution. So he's doing two things. One is chronological, that is, the human cycle is about, in some ways, the evolution of human society chronologically. And the ideal of human unity is about a kind of spatial unification, world government, things like that. And he was writing in 1914, 15, in that period, when the war had broken out. In the League of Nations, he writes about that there. And he predicts the League of Nations will fail. Of course, the United Nations also, some people claim, has failed. But these are ideas. In other words, yesterday we were talking about human problems and human resources to solve the problems. So the nation state doesn't seem to be an adequate resource anymore to solve, because dividing humanity in terms of these competitive units and each trying to better the other is not going to solve our problems, because most rivers in India, for example, have their origin in China. So if China and India are not on friendly terms, you're not going to be able to manage water properly. In fact, the rivers in Pakistan also, in fact, we call it China, but most of the rivers come from Tibet, frankly. The whole set of rivers going to the west, that is Indus and Satluj and Ravi, Bias, Chenab, the 5 rivers of the Punjab and the Indus, they're all from Tibet. And then this side, the Brahmaputra, which is the biggest river in India in terms of the water capacity, it all comes from there. So, similarly, global warming will not affect just one country, it's going to affect everybody, as we said yesterday. And then also, the economies of the world are integrated. So, energy, economics, and education, things like that, the Triple E challenge, all of this affects all of us. That's my point. It's not as if, some people will be saved and other people will be doomed to perish. So it's like a train. So the engine in the front may think that it's ahead of everybody, or the first compartment, but the first and the last are interlinked, And that's what brings us to, the point that we were talking about yesterday and today, which is that we seem to be at an evolutionary crisis. And this crisis is being accentuated or exacerbated by a variety of factors, including, as we said, energy and economics, isn't it? Because, managing our energy and then the climate issues that we brought up yesterday. So each of these is feeding into this global or planetary crisis. And trying to address this crisis are resources such as culture, religion, um, science, politics. These are our resources. We're trying to address the crisis through these resources. And somehow there is a gap between the challenge, which seems to be huge, and the resources, which seem to be limited. Isn't it? This is what we seem to be facing. And so, now what is the way out? Where do we go from here? Everybody is concerned about that. And another point about the paradox, I'm sure you've read about the bar shooting yesterday in California, right? In Oakland?
Los Angeles.
Is it Los Angeles? Yeah, it's very close to Los Angeles, I think. And 12 people died. Now, I don't know how you read these incidents, but I read them in a very simple way, that is, all is not right with the world, with our world. One person is standing up, and you remember this shooter who sprayed bullets in this nightclub?
Florida.
Yeah,
Orlando. It was
when
a
the song
gay,
was going on.
it
Who
was
was singing?
a gay club.
Who?
I don't know. It was a gay club.
No.
The one in Las Vegas?
Las Vegas, that's the one. So who was the guy who was singing the song?
He was a country artist.
And that was a great song that was being played, I heard the song as well. And this guy, who was quite a good gambler, he had earned a lot of money through gambling. And he planned it. He had all these guns, and he had, booked that suite right, across. I read all about it at that time. I even wrote a column on it. It's something bizarre that this guy who was well off, and his neighbors didn't think he was weird. He showed no signs of an aberration. His brother was interviewed, and he said, I didn't think my brother was mad or crazy. Anyhow, so just read about it. He meticulously planned it, and he shot so many people dead. So it's like people are just generally saying, listen, there's something terribly wrong with the arrangement of our world. And what is it that's wrong with us? It makes you think. And yesterday our topic was Indic values and models, isn't it? And I wanted to speak briefly about that because we haven't quite discussed it properly. But I think there's a belief, or people think that people in India, and I don't think it was exclusive to India, but there was a wisdom tradition, and there were custodians of this in different parts of the world. And they had found a way to, as it were, harmonize the human, the natural, and the supernatural. I mean, these were the three realms as they had seen life at that time. In modern times, we don't believe in the supernatural, as you know. The supernatural has entered into our lives through fantasy and science fiction. Re-entered. If you've read Harry Potter, I don't know if you read that stuff, or Game of Thrones, or whatever it is. So it comes back like that. You banish it and then it returns. This is something very interesting about us. We say this doesn't exist, it's false, it's superstitious, and it comes right back for some other form. And that's the kind of thing that Jung and Freud and others were talking about in different ways. In fact, we're sitting in a circle now, right? And we believe that we are all different, right? We take so much pride in our individuality. But we don't understand fully what happens when we fall asleep. Where do we go? What happens to our psyche or our personality? The personality or individuality resurfaces in the morning because you wake up, and for a bit sometimes you don't know where you are, who you are. Has that happened to you? I travel a lot and it happens to me. On honestly, I wake up and I feel I'm in India, but I'm actually in Los Angeles. It takes me a while to figure out, because some part of me, you may call it my subtle body, is there. My physical body is here. And it takes a while to reconnect the two bodies. And actually, I mean, I know that just before I've woken up, I was actually in another room, in another place. I was walking around there, I was picking things up. And so when I wake up, I feel so disoriented. And I say, where am I, you know? And I'm sure you've been in India now for a couple of months, it's happened to you once or twice, that you felt you were back home, or you were in your hostel room, you know, in your dorm room or at home. And then you woke up in a different place and you said, where am I? You know, and you said, oh, I'm in Jaipur. I thought I was back home, whatever, for Thanksgiving or Halloween, whatever. So that happens to you or never happened to anybody. So that disorientation, and then you feel good that you're back to being yourself. And sometimes you feel bad because being yourself sucks also, right? You know, however you love yourself, there are times when I'm sure all of us have had grave doubts about ourselves. Yes, that's normal. You say, oh gee, I thought I was in heaven, or I was having tea with an angel, or I met my grandmom who's been dead for 20 years. You've had dreams like that, or nobody's ever had dreams? You have vivid dreaming, lucid dreaming. So that means that when you fall asleep, something's going on which you, what happened?
Malaria medication.
On medication also, you get all kinds of dreams. You get hallucinations also, right?
So weird.
It's so weird, exactly. Which makes you doubt, and now people who are working on virtual reality, they feel that they can stimulate lobes of your brain, and you don't need to travel. You can, you can go to a shop and you can buy an African safari without going to Africa, because they're just 3D. I've been to one of these labs, and they created a 3D experience of Mahabalipuram. It's a famous rock temple on the way from Chennai to Pondicherry. And you go there, they put this on you, and you can actually move, and you can point. You've got some, like a remote device, you can see things there. You can point to that temple and you can move closer and you get information about it. And you can point to a tree and you're on top of the tree to get an aerial view. And it really makes you think. If you stimulate other senses, you can create a olfactory experience as well. Smell, sight can be stimulated. So we are co-creators of reality. Reality is not out there alone. It's how you participate in it and you create it. And so even those who are experimenting with cuisine, there's molecular gastronomics now. So so it's not, you're not eating anything. There's no nutrition. It's just sensation. They're creating these molecules, and it's synthetic. It's not real food. It's chemical, yeah. So it makes you think, what happened? That's the nature of the psyche remains to some extent as yet unmapped, and so we may think we are all different, and individuals, but you can imagine that like a matrix scenario, that when you're sleeping, it's like an umbilical cord, and everybody zones out, and then you're connected to some kind of other entity, the overbeing or some collective being, and Jung called it the collective unconscious. So Jung's idea was that you're an individual, we're all individuals, but when you go to sleep, then your psyche is submerging into the collective unconscious. It's a very interesting idea, and the archetypes and many of the things we're grappling with are from the collective unconscious. So Freud talked about the individual unconscious, but Jung said the unconscious is collective. It's not individuated. Individuality is in the waking. So there's the conscious mind, when you're conscious, and the unconscious mind. So the unconscious mind is not essentially an individual mind. For Freud it was individual, so that the unconscious takes you to your fears and traumas. So psychoanalysis was the way of healing. So you could go into your unconscious and see what was bothering you. What was it that was preventing you from mastering yourself or dealing with the problem? And often it's the theories that you have to tap into the trauma. Everybody's been traumatized, or maybe you've had a trauma experience you don't know about till you were 5. Freud's theory is based on that. So you've got to go back, you regress, and you figure that out, you fix it, and then your life changes for the better. That's the presumption in Freud. But Jung said, you know what, it's not easy. You can't just fix your own unconscious because there's a collective unconscious. So when you're submerging into the unconscious, it's not about fixing your own individual unconscious, which means, again, humanity together must change. It's not an individual who changes. And in the West or in modern society, we place a lot of premium on gifted individuals. Like that's the idea of the superhero. That some superhero will save the world. Isn't it? And you should see how this evolves. It evolves when America becomes a superpower between the wars. All the comics start in the 20s. That's when the United States gets a sense that it's going to be the #1 power in the world. And so they start creating these superheroes. And you have the slogan, with great power comes. Exactly. So that is the idea. But as opposed to that, and going back to Sri Aurobindo, the idea really is that